Where did he get a job here? And also,
That's pretty impressive.
yeah, but he came home.
Oh, yeah.
He's going to be.
That goes way back.
Oh, yeah.
I think he's just straight next week.
Go for there. Huh?
And you go to Charles.
You did?
Internship with them.
Nice. Yeah. My son doesn't even know if he wants to do that.
So he sells a couple things.
What's his internship?
He's at marketing with minor in entrepreneurship.
Wow, entrepreneurship's a major. That's interesting, or an emphasis.
It is an
Cool.
I know.
He's excited about it.
Yeah.
Oh, tried to steer him a little bit.
Yeah.
You know, he went, yeah. Let's not get over with it. Oh, Dad. What did you tell her like July 15th? It just goes to show.
Yeah. Well, the internship?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
His mom gave it to him. Because, you know,
Yeah. I don't.
Okay, I'll call the village board meeting for Monday, March 18th to order. We have a quorum and the agenda was properly posted. Let's stand for the pledge of allegiance. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next item is public appearances. This is public's opportunity to talk about any subject that's not a specific agenda item. I think we had 2 for TDS and they're not on the agenda, right?
They are not.
Okay, so, Larry Gunlock? Come on up here and. Sure. Either the podium or the table, I think, as long as there's a microphone there.
Main reason, I'll pass these around and you can, I'll comment before you set them on. The main reason I wanted to come, I realized it wasn't on the agenda, but now that the snow is gone, there are safety issues that I think are rather serious that have popped up, and I'm surprised no one got hurt while the snow was still there. You'll see in a couple of those that there are holes in the ground where they have dug, and they're about, one is 10 inches deep, I think, and it's about 2 feet long and a foot wide, and it's within a foot from the sidewalk. And kids are going back and forth to school every day, and it surprises me that none of them got hurt. Just if not seeing it, they could have just stepped in that hole. Additionally, where the ped is, it's a splicing ped that is on Matt Dunning's corner of Arbery and Forreston. That's another one that has the ped sticking at ground level, but then there's another 8 inches of dirt that has been removed all around it, and that one's within 6 inches from the sidewalk. And if you take a step and step on that, you could easily turn your ankle, break your ankle, and I really think those need to be fixed. There's, in my next door neighbor, there's actually a sinkhole in her yard that's about this wide and about that long, and it goes down about a foot. And I suspect it must be from their digging when they put the fiber cable in. Now, and that one isn't as much of a one. The other one is where the fire hydrant is, which is on the lot line between my property and my neighbor. And that, they had dug a deep hole. In fact, when I first saw that this was going on, that hole was probably that deep and they were standing in it, and I don't know why. It was right next to the fire hydrant. And to me, that doing that in the wintertime, and now the snow is out, and as soon as the frost goes out, that is really going to get a lot muddier, especially if we get rain. And that's kind of a drain from our backyards, that water will come down there, wash into the street. There's already mud that's been washed into the street. And there'll be more of that. One across the street in Forreston is even on steeper ground than that, and it's worse than that particular one. That isn't necessarily a safety issue, but heaven forbid, if we did have a fire in the neighborhood and they had to access that fire hydrant, a fireman could easily get hurt slopping around in that muddy mess trying to get hoses onto the fire hydrant. So, one of our neighbors did talk to TDS about the safety issue that he had by his house, and was told they couldn't do anything about it because they've been stopped and they can't come in and do anything. So my recommendation, strong recommendation, is that we as a village should take care of those issues right away. That I don't see any reason why they should continue. So, and I'm sure as homeowners that we would address that, but we have no idea whatsoever that we should be touching any of that stuff, so we haven't.
Okay.
So that's it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for the picture. We also have Jeff Hansen. Did you want to speak, Jeff?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, you just didn't have a chair. Okay.
You got too many questions on there, my for or against or whatever.
Okay.
I'm not going to rehash a lot of the stuff that, I think this is 4 meetings in a row now that I've been here, so I think everybody knows my face. I just want to give an update. As you recall, on March 4th, you guys pulled the agreement with TDS. On March 6th, Wednesday, 2 days after that agreement was pulled, my tech was in the village working on the fiber, and I'm not familiar with their activities, but there was 5 trucks. At that time, I called Lisa just to verify that I wasn't in the twilight zone, that I understood that the agreement was to be pulled. She said, yes, can I stay on the line? I believe she probably contacted JJ and confirmed that JJ talked to TDS, that it was understood that their activities were supposed to stop in the village. As I pulled up to the MyTech guys, I said, have you been notified that the agreement was pulled? The individual I talked to said no. TDS was in our office the morning before, and they mentioned nothing about their activities being pulled or denied for activity in the village. So I guess what I want to give you guys an update is, in terms of communications, TDS has virtually nothing positive, as I see it, going forward, either collaboration with their subs or with the residents of the 2 subdivisions that they're working on right now, Arbery Court and Arrowwood, or the Forest and the Forest Ridge subdivision and the Arrowwood. So 2 days after the fact, there was no cease and stop order to their subs. After I talked to those individuals, they said, well, we'll just pick up and leave right now. So obviously they either knew that they shouldn't have been there but wanted to finish activities so that they could maybe get paid for what they've completed. But it seems pretty crappy to me that that information wasn't relayed for activities to stop. JJ, Lisa, do you have anything to add to that? Other than the fact that, I wish he were here. I have a 3-letter word that I would like to call them. He called us a pet issue, and I'd like to say that what I view their activities as a rat issue. They're no different than a rat. They're sneaky. They seem to act like nocturnal activity, come in and do whatever they want, and unfortunately, they leave a heck of a mess as they're leaving. So I want to thank you for pulling that agreement, and I think it's quite obvious that whatever happened in Sun Prairie could easily have occurred here, because they don't have any communications, as I understand, with the Power and Light, and I hope that doesn't ever occur here in the village. Thank you.
We were as direct as I could be with them in both person and writing, so.
Okay. The last thing I saw was the email that you sent on the 12th saying TDS has not done anything, I guess, yet, one way or the other.
When we get a call like that, we contact TDS, and then they're like, you know, they don't seem to necessarily know what's being reported, and we,
So I do have pictures, 5 pictures of their 5 trucks in the village at 2:16 to 3 o'clock on March 6th, 2 days after you guys pulled their agreement. So I certainly would like to share those with you if you want.
Feel free to send them.
JJ made mention on my voice message, we weren't able to communicate, but he said that they were only in the village to assess where they're at. Well, if they were taking pictures, a team of 5 trucks, and I'm assuming 6 or 7 workers finalizing the fiber, that's not taking pictures and assessing where they were at. They were actually doing work. I saw tools. I have pictures of tools, and they're men. And the minute I walked up, they looked like a bunch of teenagers that got caught toilet papering. They just picked up their stuff and left. It wasn't much of a discussion.
Thank you.
Jeff, just so you know, at least during my report, I want to relay something that Matt and I had talked about, and that is to communicate with TDS and give them a deadline. You know, because I mean, this can just keep going on and on and on.
Right,
And
absolutely.
we want to try to make sure that this gets brought to a head.
Yeah, I understand, Lee. I guess what seems to be frustrating is they're hiding behind several subs right now. That seems to be difficult. You've had TDS here in the evening, and I don't know if anybody has ever seen their activity during the, or somebody here during the day. Have you, JJ?
Oh, not since the last board meeting, I didn't.
I guess I meant a TDS employee other than their subs.
Oh,
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, number 5, discuss and consider the minutes of the regular village board meeting of March 4th and the joint village town board meeting of February 25th. Any comments, corrections, Randy?
Motion to approve both.
Okay, here's a second.
I'll second.
Motion and second to approve both sets of minutes as presented. Any other discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? Motion passes. New business, discuss and consider new operator's licenses for July 2018 to June 2019 for Maxwell Gorich and Christopher Thornell. And I did take it, no issues with these people, Chief?
There are issues,
That was the one? Okay.
both.
Both of them? Okay.
Just for the boards, both of these have issues with them.
Warrant for arrest in another state.
Right, and so the question is, when we wrote the guidelines, there was never an attempt to cover every possible thing that, you know, a person could do. But if you look at our guidelines, it talks about the fact that the village shall consider and review each application in a reasonable manner and exercise its discretion. There is a miscellaneous section in number 6. And so I guess in terms of the first one, where you're talking about there being a warrant for his arrest in another state, we could certainly request to find out what the traffic complaint consists of, if it's a parking ticket or it's something else, that's one thing. If it's a more serious offense, that might be something that you say, well, you know, that's the kind of thing that, if that had happened in Wisconsin, we would not be granting the license. And so that would be how I would suggest handling this. Is I think there's more information we'd want to gather before we took any action. That's just my.
I agree with that.
Yeah,
I'd like
I mean,
more information.
The other one is apparently working at Village Liquor without an operator.
Well, I'd like to talk about that separately.
Okay.
Me too.
So just now the best thing to do is table both of these.
Well, yeah, let me say something about the second one. I have some real concerns about this, and in some ways, I feel bad that that the applicant is kind of caught in the middle here. But by the same token, the person who we've generally worked with at Village Liquor, is no longer there.
Right.
And I think that this would be a good time to contact the owner of Village Liquor or a representative of Village Liquor and have them appear in front of the board and explain what steps have they taken, if any, to make sure that this doesn't happen again. Because if I work for them, and maybe I don't know if the person in question has had licenses before, but I think that this is something that this is fairly serious in terms of the business itself not really following through on things.
If they got a new owner, they need to understand.
Yeah, I don't know if there is a new owner or not, but I do know that whoever is in charge over there has to do a better job of vetting these people. So I'd suggest tabling both of them, unless anybody has questions.
No, I'll make a motion to table both applicants.
I do have the police report for the second incident. We received an anonymous tip that he was operating without a license at Village Liquor by himself. So we went there, and he said he had completed the internet online course and was not aware that he didn't have a license and that his employer scheduled him to work. So we made contact with the employer, and he said he had nobody else to work, so he scheduled him.
But on this form, it says that he took the responsible beverage server course on 3.5. And
Yeah, he took the course.
Right, but you gave him the ticket on 3.2?
Yeah, I don't,
Yeah. So
that
he
day
took the
he
course.
claimed
Yeah,
he took the internet course.
right.
Yeah, so that could be different. Yeah.
Okay, so,
Makes me wonder how long he's been working there,
yeah.
too.
There's been issues there.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
I'll second your
Okay.
motion.
Motion and second to table both applicants pending further information. Any other discussion?
Jack, I just would ask that the board would direct Lisa and whoever else she designates to make sure that the proper notifications are sent out to these people so that they know that they have the opportunity to appear next time and potentially for a closed session.
And as far as the second one, you want to see here anyway, to have it. The second-
Well, I'd like that person to be here. I'm more concerned about the owner
Okay,
and the manager or the manager. So I guess I'd contact both.
so I'm fine with adding, directing Lisa to get a hold of these people and contact with Lisa.
Agree.
All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion passes. All right. Reports from village boards, commissions, and committees. First is Public Works and Property. You have a few things there.
Okay, so we met on March 5th, discussed the upcoming bike path construction, particularly one on Main Street. Mike went through the details of that in preparation for an RFP. Touched a little bit on the Conservancy Court wetland project. They will just need to wait until spring comes to see how what the guys did in restoring that actually took from there. Then we had a discussion about traffic impact fee study and potential implementation. There, though, that there's a sizable cost associated with that, and it's actually on here to discuss and consider.
30.
So that really needs probably to go through the budget cycle, I think, because it's really too much for us to absorb without that consideration and prioritizing that versus everything else that's up there. We had a initial discussion about solar potentially on the roof of the municipal building. This was brought up at the utilities meeting. I'd like to get more information, so scheduling a presentation for the next meeting to get more details on that and how that would go. It sounds intriguing, but you got to see like things like how old is the roof and can the roof handle those types of things, et cetera. So there's a lot of other questions that really need to be dug into, despite, in lieu of the payback and certainly, environmental positive impacts and stuff. And then we'll be talking about in upcoming meetings, talking about a number of ordinances that are up for consideration that we were going to talk about at the prior meeting, but the snow got us the best of us, so that wasn't on the agenda, so we'll have that upcoming. Next meeting is April 2nd, and JJ and Mike, did I miss anything or any further updates from there?
You're having a meeting on election day.
Yep.
Vote early. Oh, you live in the village, yeah.
You can
I
vote
guess
all
one
day.
question I had with the cost of that study, I mean, I don't know what impact fees run for other places that have them, but how much of that are you going to recoup in impact fees versus the cost of the study? I mean, I don't know, I was curious if you have any information.
And how long that takes to recoup.
We're only familiar with 2 in the state.
Yeah.
And, yeah, they're significantly different, I suppose, but yeah, the cost of the study alone, if we were near that lower one, you'd have to add quite a few rooftops just to pay back the study. So,
I mean, it depends on the size of improvements.
Yeah.
So in Sun Prairie, it was about $750 for a single-family house. Oconomowoc was about $150, so it varies widely. And then the town of Ledgeview was a third one I found.
Okay.
And theirs was about like Oconomowoc's as well, in the hundreds. So, you need about 300 homes to, pay back the study and then any other improvements. And you can't do, right now, development is required to make improvements that's adjacent to the property, and we can't do both. We can't do an impact fee and require that.
Right.
So,
Double dip.
we would have to do one or the other.
Yeah, which might mean why there's only a few cities or municipalities that do it in the state, which is what we talked about as well. So,
Honestly, I think that in your budget, Mike was talking at the staff meeting, and he had a budgeted figure for legal fees, and it was, I wouldn't be able to hit that figure no matter how hard I tried. But honestly, I think you're going to have to build in some potential costs for legal fees as far as defending the ordinance. Because I think that, remember, Cottage Grove was, I think, the first in Dane County to do an impact fee. And we immediately were sued by the homeowners, or not homeowners, but the Builders Association.
Right.
And that was a lawsuit that eventually went away, but it's been pretty quiet. But I think that this would, since I think there's only 3 in the state, that they may think, well, if this is going to start here, we're going to fight it right at the source. So, I'm just kind of pointing out that there could be some additional costs in there.
Any other comments, questions for Mike or Gabe?
Okay.
Yeah, I just wanted to kind of reiterate that, like with Shady Grove and developments that come in, we've been looking at the developer's costs, take care of half the road, take care of the whole road if it's half town on the other side, and that's kind of the thing we run into from time to time. There's a developable parcel that you could have another development take care of it. If it's a town development, then you're kind of doing that, but you're dealing with that on a case-by-case basis, and each development runs into something. And if you, and that puts it on the developer, and then gets into the cost per lot. The impact fees charging the builder and kind of avoiding the developer. So it's kind of a different, it's a different place that you're putting the fee on. And Matt found the 2000 2015 report we did, which was kind of defending the impact fees that you have in a way, comparing it to other communities. Oregon and some of the communities of similar size had a similar structure. Theirs was a little higher. Stoughton at the time, I couldn't find certain fees because they were probably using the method that the village had used, which was more charge the developer, the things that you need, the major things. And then use the impact fees you do have, like sewer and water to handle, like the development that's interested in developing out here, and sewer and water ends here, well, maybe the impact fees then will cover getting it there, and then the developer's responsible the rest of the way
Sure.
through. So that, if we were to change those agreements where the developer was going to participate, we'd have to switch to the impact fee and then charging the builders. So, library came in and was looking at an impact fee, and I had an estimated amount of $900 that would get added onto the impact fee for a building permit. And a couple of builders came in to kind of complain about, how much a building permit was going to cost in the village at the time. So that issue went away, but it was kind of also to note that on sewer and water impact fees, it's not like they're paying for 100% of all the big ticket items right then and there, so it takes a while for the development to occur. So the village always had a limit on, okay, this project's in and this project isn't, way back at the beginning, and decided there was probably a threshold, marketability of how far can the impact fee go.
Right.
Before it looks like the building permit's just too expensive for a builder.
Okay. Any other thoughts?
No, just to motion to table this for the budget cycle to even talk about. It has to be evaluated.
Yeah.
All that.
I'll second that.
Okay. So motion and second to table item 7.1A, the impact study and fee for the upcoming building cycle. Any other comments, questions? If not, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstention? Okay, thank you. Emergency government.
We met on March 7th, introduced a new EMS chief, and also the new Cottage Grove fire chief. Dave Bursack was there from Dane County Emergency Government, and mentioned again that we're much better prepared than other communities in Dane County. Also reinforced that we're here to support, coordinate, and not in charge or command of anything. Cottage Grove is unique, the only community in the county that has both a joint town and a village emergency government. The village may, he did point out the village may want to consider appointing an emergency government director. Also discussed tabletop exercise with Landmark likely pertaining to anhydrous ammonia or propane. We should consider having Madison Hazmat at that exercise also. We also talked about the emergency response standard operating guides. The town approved the original draft on August 15, 2011, and then it's been updated to 2014. This hasn't been approved by the town or the village, to my knowledge. Dave mentioned that both the town and village should have their own emergency plan, which can be the same plan. It just says the town of Cottage Grove, the village of Cottage Grove on it. Each community, town, the village, will get all the contacts updated. Also, the other committee members in their Landmark exams will get all that stuff. So we'll reconvene and review that then at the next meeting. Northern Scooter is doing safety drills this spring, severe weather drills, and then next meeting is on April 4th at 6:30.
Troy, just to give you a heads up, JJ, what was the ordinance you were talking about that designates or requires you or your designee to be involved if there's an emergency?
One of our ordinances, not sure.
Okay.
Which one?
Well, anyway,
He was probably talking about snow emergency ordinance, probably. I know you mentioned that.
well, I'll check my notes. Anyway, there is another area of the code that I don't remember us ever even talking about that kind of made some mention of that, so that might come under your review as well, so. Fine.
Okay.
I didn't mean to put you on the spot like that without.
All right.
But I did. That's right. Oops.
Community Development Authority, you've got a couple of ordinances to discuss and consider.
Yeah, so we met on March 11th. This is a combination of the start of discussion for preparing for hopefully a hotel in the community, one of which is by state statute. Actually, both of them are being addressed through state statutes, among other things. The one is to create a tourism commission, which is required by state statute, and the committee discussed that. Aaron went through a nice kind of detail around how we were going to do that based on feedback from the committee from the prior meetings. That was approved to be considered here. And then the second part of that was just updating our current ordinance. Again, some references there that needed to be updated. A lot of the discussion was about room tax, which is referenced here on the discuss and consider, whether or not we should change that from, say, 8% to 7%. A good discussion about what that might mean. Again, it's on the actual folks that rent the room, whether or not there's an advantage to decrease that. The committee just deferred to this board on what to and approved all the changes and left it as 8% as it currently is. Of those fees, the majority of them, I think 7+%, go back into tourism by state statute, which is, certainly fine for us because then we're looking at drawing more folks to visit Cottage Grove and take in our restaurants, parks, etc. So,
Okay.
Jeff, anything I missed? Or?
No, it was good.
Okay. Tourism Commission, now, we still have, I guess you haven't met as a public relations committee, right? We used to have one. I don't know if you remember that, but I don't know if it's the same people, or how do you get people for this commission? Citizen members, board members?
Aaron detailed and the committee discussed. Part of it's driven by statute and which folks need to be on that committee. And so that's been outlined in the draft as far as that. You need somebody from the hotel, you need somebody from, I can't remember all the details, but it's two and then
board
two
members,
board
two
members.
members.
So Aaron, yeah, sorry. Aaron knows because you wrote it all up.
All right, any other questions?
We weren't ignoring you.
I guess I don't understand the point of the Tourism Commission at this point, considering we don't have a hotel. And the Tourism Commission is supposed to administer the village's room tax revenues. So we don't have any revenues coming in yet.
So the point of this is prepare for growth. And in order to be ready for growth, we want to have this in place. We've had multiple discussions now about hotels. I think there's another one potentially coming for the CDA in the next go-around, a actual...
At least at the staff level, hopefully
Yeah.
within the next few weeks.
So there is definite interest. We've been certainly talking about it for years. But this one's a slightly different.
As a developer, would they be concerned if our room tax rate was higher than other surrounding communities and it would deter them from building, possibly?
I don't know why they would.
I mean,
It goes to the person's
Matt,
favor.
what do you think? I mean, you're talking to the...
No one's ever mentioned that as a deterrent.
Okay.
But if they did, we would, I mean,
Yeah, if
we
they
would
think
be the
there's
ones,
one-
we would be the ones saying, hey, lower it, but
Yeah,
no one told us that.
Yeah, let us know if you get that feedback and we'll
Mhm.
we'll adjust it. but-
I've talked to two over the past 3 or 4 months, and both have indicated that kind of is a showstopper for these two individuals.
But they're local, correct?
They're both local, and they both developed and are business people in the community. So
Do they have proposals for us, or they just?
I can certainly reach out to them. I don't know how far along they are in the
Yeah.
planning process, or if it's, someone that's going to be meeting with Matt, and I can circle back and have them provide feedback to the staff.
I think one of the
I'm sure these
things-
are people I know then, and they've never told me this.
Yeah, no, I
Yeah.
think there's a reason for that, but One of the things we suggested the CDA was having, once we start having hotel developers show up, that's what they do in day out, is develop hotels. If they come forward and say, actually, that's a deal breaker. I think I mentioned that CDA, I have a really good friend in Minnesota that does that. That's what he does for a living. He said, wouldn't matter to us. What really matters is the impact fees. If we start messing with impact fees, then they're going to say, hey, we can go somewhere else. He says, room tax, it's based on, basically based on your room stay and how many people actually go to a hotel and say, well, I'm not going to stay here because the room tax is too high. They just stay, and then you get it the next morning and go, oh, there you are. So, I mean, we can change it down the road. We kind of left it open, like, hey, we can always revisit it. But since, like Melissa's already pointed out, we don't really have one right here at this point. So, I think we start getting pushback from people, which I would be really surprised if that were the case. Then, yeah.
If they explain to us how it, that but for room tax lowered,
Yeah.
Which would be insane.
What
but
is
for
Madison's
that.
right now?
They're at
What is
10.
Madison's?
10%.
10, okay.
Oh, okay.
They're actually above state statute, they got.
I mean, we're right on the interstate there. I don't know, it's a pretty good location.
And in reality, too, when you're talking a multi-million, when you're talking about a big project like that, 1% is,
Well, it's $1 on a $100 room.
yeah.
Yeah, more of the discussion was about, how maybe the TIDs would get utilized in a
Mhm.
situation like that.
Right.
I'm sure they care
That would
more
be-
about that, yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
So, but the other thing is we do want to get these, the CDA does want to get this stuff in place so that if and when, and hopefully soon, we do have someone interested, this is already done and dusted, and we've taken care of it.
But yeah, we'd be the first people to come to you guys and say, let's lower it. If
Yeah.
someone says we'll bring a hotel tomorrow, if we could just lower the room tax, we would
Please do.
definitely recommend lowering the room tax, so.
Yeah, I have a feeling it would
Be
be
the
a
first
long
answer.
list of things that would probably be at the bottom.
Yeah.
Okay.
John or Aaron, maybe you could also check with Ruderbush, because I mean, they do a lot of.
They're at the
Yeah.
Okay, so then they,
Yeah,
yeah, that's right.
CDA.
Yeah.
Yeah, Kyle seemed
Yeah.
to be in agreement with what we're talking about.
Okay.
But I still don't, I get that we want to be prepared for a hotel, but if the hotel isn't coming, if they do come in a month, great, but I don't understand why we're putting a tourism commission before there's a hotel.
Well, would the Tourist Commission meet before
Not until there's income,
we have a
I would
hotel?
imagine.
Not
Okay,
until
so
there's
all we're doing is just the formality of putting it in place?
Yeah, we're just putting an ordinance in place.
Okay.
Yeah.
But then we have to assign commission members.
Do we?
Like right away, or can we wait?
I don't think so, but here's the other thing that you could do, and that is simply put out the word on our website or the Herald Independent or whatever to say that the village plans to develop this tourism commission. If you're interested, contact Aaron or Matt or whatever, and then if you do actually get enough to do, I mean, I probably wouldn't get it up and active until you had a real live hotel and plans, but get them then to meet so that they can find out what their duties and
Is
responsibilities
this
are.
going to be like an ad hoc thing where they only meet when necessary, or
Once it's up and running.
Yeah, once it's up and running, no.
They need to meet on a regular basis.
either way?
What I liked about the discussion at the CDA and what sold me on it was the fact that it does show developers that we're making the right moves in the right direction, so.
Okay.
But it's easy, I don't know, because it's easy enough to put a tourism commission in place, because we've already got it drafted. So I don't understand how it needs to be done before a hotel actually comes, because it's not like the hotel's gonna be built the next day. I mean, there's a planning process, so I don't understand why it can't be put in at any point in time when the hotel actually came to us and said they were going to. Because my concern is if the hotel doesn't come soon, then we put in this ordinance that could go out of, could change, and so our ordinance, we'd have changed. and it
You're saying
wouldn't-
we spend the money and then it doesn't go through?
What
That
brought
we
this
don't
up?
get
Why did you guys start the ball rolling on this?
Again, this is in consideration of TID 10,
Huh?
the area around there, as well as commercial park, and hearing continuously that we have interest and a newer interest in a hotel. So we thought, let's get ready for this and let's show if someone is really truly interested. We've got this thing in place and we're ready to open arms, come in.
Sure.
So that's the.
Melissa, I just would, to play devil's advocate, is that it's already drafted. I mean, Aaron and I have gone through this, we already talked about it. I mean, this is, it's ready to go. So I mean, if you have it in your ordinance books, you don't necessarily have to fill the positions. But then you also, you know that it's there and you're not scrambling around trying to figure out what to do if a hotel says that they want to come in. So that'd be another way to look at it.
Right. No, I agree with that, but now it is drafted, but that doesn't mean we have to implement it, is what I'm getting at. Because I'm afraid that if we do implement it and then a hotel doesn't come, then we've wasted all this time and effort or the money to put in this new ordinance that wasn't needed or would change in the future before we got a chance to use the current ordinance that we're putting in just in case.
Again,
That's all I'm
the
getting at.
CDA felt strongly about it, approved it, and they're throw it in front of this board for consideration. Aaron's put the time and effort in already leveraging other ordinances. It also covers Airbnbs, which is not, it also updates our ordinance to current state statute, which we need to do.
Well, all
And
that's
this one's done.
it's just changing the village treasurer to
No, there's other things in there,
and the Airbnb.
as well as putting the tourism commission in place because that's required by state statute.
Somebody want to make a motion on 7A?
I'll make a motion to approve the ordinance 1.0-2019 for the purposes of enabling creation of tourism commission.
I'll second.
Motion and second. Any other discussion? If not, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Abstentions? Motion passes. 7B.
I'll make a motion then to approve the ordinance 02-2019 amendment for ordinance 16-9 for the village room tax ordinance as well as a number of corrections and update the current state statute.
And that keeps the tax at 8% then?
Yeah, it's that's the way it's drafted. It's 8%.
I'll second that.
Okay, motion and second. Any other discussion? If not, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Aye. 2. Okay, all right, motion passes. Down to the Plan Commission. Looking at the agenda here. Computer. There it is. All right. We had short Plan Commission meeting. We talked basically about some potential ordinance amendments related to Wisconsin Act 67 and Act 243. One, of course, was a protest petition, and then we had some other ones. I guess I'll let Aaron and Lee talk about where we're at with those. We're going to talk about those later anyway.
The protest petition was just one part of it, and there are also changes related to impact fees and the subdivision ordinance, how some conditional uses are handled, the way sureties are provided by a subdivider, and then some changes to the way conditional use permits are judged. We didn't feel at the Plan Commission we needed to make any changes to our conditional use sections of our ordinances, but just to be aware that there were some changes there as well.
Well, almost all these arose out of Act 243, and which was passed, last year, Aaron? Took effect this year? Yeah, and this reflects a desire on the part of the state legislature to encourage building. So if you go through all of the changes that, we were talking about, I mean, it just reflects that. Right. And there are some things that are that are going to be highly debated. There are other things, and we've already found that some of the changes with regard to development and the use of a performance bond as opposed to a letter of credit creates issues, because a performance bond is not generally used for a development. And I've been working with Mike Maloney to see if we can kind of create our own development bond, because we do have a developer who's asking to use it. But there's going to be a lot to get worked out, and it's unfortunate that when it got passed, that apparently wasn't discussed.
So this is more on the municipality then to help create the bond?
Yes. Yep. And the thing is, John, it sounds, okay, like, well, just use a performance bond. I mean, that's always been around, but no, in 38 years, no one has ever used a performance bond, because that's usually for kind of a single event, like, you're building a park shelter or something like that. And so now someone says, well, we can't get a letter of credit, we want to use a performance bond. Well, there is no format or form out there to really reflect what needs to be taken care of in a subdivision like these people are proposing.
So it's not on the developer, it's on the municipality to...
Well, this first one will be kind of on us, in the sense that, of course, Mike and I will be selling these on the internet to other municipalities. We'll try to get back some of our cost. But no, I mean, we said to the developer, well, if you want to draft it yourself and give it to us to review, fine. They didn't want to do that. So there's a cost that will be allocated to them, and there's a cost that we assume because we're the municipality.
Okay. Any other questions for Matt or Aaron? Or?
So the plan commission will have a public hearing in April on these,
Right.
and they'll come here, assuming they
Okay. All right, reports from village officers, Troy.
No report.
Okay, James?
3 days till spring, yay.
Awesome. Jeff?
No report.
Melissa?
No report.
Okay, John?
I just have a question. So we had Larry present with all these holes based on TDS, and we stopped, we pulled their permit. How do we remedy this, I guess, is what I'd like to get to the bottom of. So we don't have these, neighborhoods that are torn up with kids walking on sidewalks or people's yards. I mean, what are our options here?
Well, John, I was going to mention that as well, but my recommendation to the board is to direct us to get hold of TDS and just say, okay, now you've had, I mean, I think, I can understand, you give them a week or something, that's one thing. They've had a substantial amount of time. We said, we want you to bring the solution and a plan to the board at the next board meeting.
I did that for tonight. I mean, they're just, they weren't
Yeah,
ready.
I think what
I don't know
John's
how you
getting-
I don't know how you make someone other than saying you can't do any work until you do.
Right.
But I think what John's getting at is, do we have our public works go forward?
Right, do we have a mechanism where we have public works?
I think
and we can
Larry had
backfill
suggested
TDS
that we
to
do
make
that.
these things safe so people aren't stepping in holes and...
Similar to the homeowners that probably don't want to ruin what's already in the ground. I mean, do we have any liability if, JJ sends a crew out there to fill these holes? I mean, it's a chance we're taking, but I certainly don't want these holes, lasting in yards for the next 2 weeks or a month or however long it's
Yeah,
gonna take.
who knows how long
Yes,
it's gonna be.
Might be a little early to fill them though, because frost isn't all out of the ground yet, but...
Yeah, but I think they filled some with gravel,
Yeah.
and then that could just be pulled out when they're ready to do the...
Well, I think they're also hesitant because they get phone calls when they're in the neighborhood, and then they get a report that, hey, they're in the neighborhood, they're not supposed to be here, so then they leave.
Right.
And John, I would be hesitant to have JJ and the crew start filling in or doing work on those areas that they've already done them on. I just think that right now, we've got to say, and Matt has really from day one tried to get them to be more responsive. Well, we just we don't have it ready yet. Well, it's gotta be ready, you know.
How about a couple of boards?
Yeah, a couple
Yeah, you were gonna suggest?
Okay, we'll cover them.
Okay.
We'll cover them.
And put a cone on top.
Boards,
So speed
No,
board.
not boards, boards. Boards, flat plywood.
Oh, you're gonna get another board deal out there.
If we don't hear anything from TDS by the next meeting, then where does that leave us, I guess?
So we'll hear from them. I mean, I
Yeah.
emailed them actually during the meeting saying,
Okay.
here's what's going on. I sent them the email that some of you guys received. So.
Okay.
I'm just curious if TDS took everybody's name, all the citizens that were here at the last meeting, had they reached out to you guys at all? Since that meeting?
I think they're only calling the people that walked out, and then they were able to write their names down.
Uh-huh.
A number of the people, like Jeff, he isn't being contacted. Another neighbor that talked, she isn't being contacted because she isn't on their list. They're only going by a short list.
And
I was
what-
contacted this afternoon.
And what did they say?
They wanted to know what I felt I needed to have to be satisfied. And I said, primarily, I would like that bed to be in my backyard, like you presented at the village board, and it's in the meeting minutes from last May. And then he asked me, then he said that if I wanted to, they would take out the bed. And I said, well, that's fine, I may feel that way. However, it's shared with a neighbor of mine who said she might like it. So I'm not going to say absolutely you have to jerk it out of there. If my neighbor might want to have TDS, I'm not against progress at all. And I think having competition with charter is probably a fine thing. The way they're going about it is like
Sloppy.
war, I'll tell you. Now, I also then said that even though I want it in the very back, I could live with having a vault. And they keep saying that that's going to freeze. But they have one on the corner that is a splicing one. What do they do when they have the pet that is at your house? It's a splice. So I think they're just saying they don't want to do it because it costs them a couple extra bucks more to do it.
Yeah.
So it's...
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for the discussion, yeah, if we can get those holes covered, I'd be satisfied until we can get TDS to bring some solutions to, future work.
Hopefully we'll have that sooner than later.
Yeah, when they first dug the holes, we put boards over the top of them. So why they left these open like that is
Right, that's just poor work.
very poor.
Okay. All right,
Thank
John, yeah, John Williams, anything?
Just a shout out to the volunteer firefighters. They had their annual corned beef and cabbage over on Saturday. And a lot of folks got to look in the trucks and take a look at them and such. So good turnout, for at least when I was there. So it's nice to see.
All right, legal briefings and status updates.
Okay, I've got a couple things. This is kind of a lead up to the major presentation that I make when we have our lame duck meeting. I'll give you the history of lame ducks. First thing I just wanted you to know, and John, I hope you got a copy of it, the driveway access agreement was finalized, it was signed, and it has been recorded with Dane County, so it is official. Another thing that I wanted to mention to the board is that sometimes there's a frustration in terms of the number of developments or the kind of developments, but when Summit had their grand opening, the attorney that represented them and I had a chance to talk for 30 or 40 minutes, and I didn't realize this, but we were really very fortunate to end up with Summit because they wanted to build in Madison on East Wash, and Madison apparently just didn't embrace the project the way that they felt it should be. And Larry Littman, who I was talking to, said, when we came out to Cottage Grove, your staff just absolutely went the extra yard or 100 yards to make sure that this got done. It was timely, and it was just for us a real home run. So, I mean, it's kind of a nice congratulations to the board, to the staff, and it comes from an attorney, so that's always a good thing. There has recently been a series of articles in the paper, one of which involves the city of Fitchburg, and it's talking about potential open meeting law violations by texting. So what was happening, or the allegation is that that trustees or aldermen were texting one another either prior to the meeting or actually at the meeting. That was the situation in Madison. They were doing it at the meeting. And so someone has filed an open records complaint, and it's very easy. I know Troy sent out an informational thing last week or this week.
Yeah, which was it, Lee?
It was last week maybe. It was some kind of informational to the board saying this or that was going to happen. Okay, you're the second person that
I'm having a gray moment.
That I'm giving credit to. But anyway, if one of us sends out something, it's very important that you don't, like reply all. Like if Troy sends something out, says, what do you think? If he sent it to you and he's sent it to everybody else, you don't hit reply all, because that is interpreted as a meeting. So you'll see on a lot of our correspondence where it will say, do not, be aware of the open records law, do not hit reply all. You can't have a number of little conversations going, and that was something that has happened in a local municipality, and one of the aldermen said, well, I don't care, I think I should be able to do this, so we'll see who wins on that one. Also, I just wanted you to know that Chief Labor and I have been working on the sexting ordinance and the POD, the pods that are in driveways, and we plan to bring those back at the next meeting, so that there isn't a delay on those.
All right, Matt?
BB Jack's restaurant should be complete by mid-May. So hopefully another grand opening later this spring.
Where's that one located? I forgot.
On the south side of the Gray Wolf building.
Okay, that's what I thought, okay. All right, Aaron? Okay, Chief Labor?
Nothing.
All right. JJ, Public Works, review of MSA annual report.
It's our annual report to the DNR as a permanent stormwater. Basically, it's in your packet. It's the second year of the online report submittal, so it's not nearly the fun narrative report you used to see. But it's our report on our outreach efforts, things we do to improve water quality, and then basically a breakdown of how we spend our budget on it. And then also included was a copy of our illicit discharge and alcohol inspection report. As a part of that, MSA's built up our GIS over the last couple of years, and now trying to bring this in-house, and then as we do it, we field verify things and change. A lot of the things that showed up as outfalls actually turned out to be kind of stormwater intake, so we're just making adjustments to the map as we go. But if there's any questions about anything in there, this is just required before I officially submit it to the DNR that I make our elected body aware.
Any questions for JJ on that? Thanks for getting that together. All right. Parks and Recreation, John?
I was informed last week that we are going to receive a $1,000 sponsorship from Hydrate, which will be recognized on May 22nd at the Day of Giving. So we're excited about Hydrate. So I'm going to help us out.
Yeah.
Do we have any kind of acceptance plan for that, or?
I'm gonna be there.
Okay,
Yeah.
should other people, what date is
Right,
it?
but yeah.
What date is it?
May 22nd.
May 22nd, and where will it be?
3 o'clock at Hydrax, right in their front, kind of in front on.
That little office?
and- Yep.
Okay, 3 o'clock, hydrate, May 22nd.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so we can thank them.
All right, Lisa, review of badge.
I have a badge book here, and I was hoping to have it up on the screen today.